Auzubillah minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Today is the Friday and 22nd of the July. Let me check that. Yes, 22nd of the July. It is confirmed. Today is the 22nd of the July, and I'm Advocate Gulrez King, the Advanced Comparative Constitutional Advocate. I just observe the questions. The baseline non-transmitted issues and the concept of the controversial judgments, the objects of the non-resolved matters, and the laws and order in non-compilatory observations, and the questions of the paper dictations and the documents of the digital observations, and the concept of the line and length of control, and the basic depiction of the facts which are irreversible in nature, and the reparable losses which are not being communicated, and the WhatsApp issues. These are the baseline issues in the Pakistan which is not being observed by any Pakistani. Despite of all these transitional areas, what we just observe in the constitutional spheres, every individual in the in-person capacity, now it is being observed by either of us that which is the issue in not line of control. Due to the multiplication of the population, I just raised so many times this question that due to the multiplication of the population, the aggressive ratio of the over inferred reproduced non-transmitted population into the Pakistan by the Pakistanis, and those minus population degrees are trying to confine themselves that they were in the point of observing the point of the perfection in the rest of the mode of assessments. The mode of assessment to the self-defined observation is a question which is not being compulsive, which is not being conclusive, which is not being rebutted, which is not being aggregated, and the public have left the habit of constructive thinking in the critical observation of the line and the aftermath results of the same scientific approved transaction by the same today. I would like to interpret the scientific approved transactions. An individual is found as to just observing the scientific approved transactions. Despite of that, the same person is not in the positions to confine himself or herself not to lay a fountain of the belt, a fountain of the belt, another idiom invented by me, fountain of the belt, the conditional agreements into the commonalities by the central litigants, by the other sides, and the whole of the seesaw of these individuals into the legal reforms and the celebrating the non-law, non-legal observations, and just prolonging the time of their self in the self devalued ejaculations is a question which is not being observed by the either sector. When I just always observe throughout my life these questions, I'm just very reserved with myself, then thereafter it is a fact of law into the resolved matter. When I just observe the overrated and over production of the females in the Pakistan, I'm confused to observe that either such females were a production of love and affection, or such females were produced under the constructive hate speech of their siblings is a question which is being subjected with this Advocate Gulrez King itself in order to object the other constitutional articles, Article 199, 199. When I just observe all of the elementary issues of the Republicans, thereafter I come up with the next thought that in the central divisional, subdivisional areas, The Pakistanis, especially in the subdivisional areas, are found as to originating the females as a workforce unions. When I just observe that those females want to become the workforce unions and the same males of the same subjected stroking issues. Stroking. The females were stroked in the bad shape valued in the central limits of the Pakistan, and the central Pakistanis are found as to just raising the doubts of the religion. This is a very technical issue which should have been observed by the Republican, that in Pakistan it is an other unsettled precedent in custom so far that the Karo-Kari and Saya-Kari is another element which is not being settled down as to the conditional legal battles outvalued or devalued or moderate valued. But whereas we just observe these issues, whereof we are trying to cut down such issues, but due to the over reproduction issues of the humans after having the wrong sides of the medical treatment, in order to have the perfect sort of the eliminated concepts, I'm totally considering these issues that the central litigant interest is a question or not. The question when becomes a question, then the solution should have been provided to the same in fact, that the facts should have been conditional. But despite of that, what is the object of the same is a question which I'm totally convincing by myself throughout the practical area of my practicing way. When I just observe the non-practicing practical advocates are there in the fields of the law as to reform the civil sides of the Republicans, I just have a bad side of the same. When I just observe all of these questions by myself throughout the decade in the Pakistan, that the Pakistanis are found as to just selling of the phraseologies into the confinement and the reflecting hours of the same in order to just time pass by the pass by of same, and the passers by are in the lanes of the control. But despite of these things, we should be reserved with the topic that is very reflected with the central observation of the Pakistan. So constitutional points and the parliamentarian orders, these were the orders which are not being rebutted by the, but the Pakistani females and inside the houses are trying not. And there is another factor which I just found in the Pakistani females. Females of the Pakistan are groomed under the constructive hate. And this is my elemented and subjected questions to all of the residents of the Pakistan, that when you just portray to be very perfect and your females are trying to beat the odds with having nothing in their houses, such females want as a housewives or as mothers, as a cross siblings, those females are not in the line and length of the control of the working of their self, then what is the objective question which is not being subjected by the males in the Pakistan to the females and the other genders? The gender victimization in Pakistan skyrocketed, touching the sky limit, and the individualism in the Pakistan raised. The in-person capacity declined, deferred. The capacitated thoughts of the Pakistanis permanently deferring, and the students, the young students into the college universities permanent decaying. Then why the all of them just want to have the perfect sort of the humans? This is my baseline interpretation of the constitutional interpreting articles, that if the electronic issues of the electrical consumptions and the consumption of the demoralized central fold of the same is an object which is being abstracted by the same, the young students are brought in the positions to observe the same. Their physical conditional barriers, their other issues, all of them are in the fantasy of daydreaming. Yes, the young students are in the fantasy of the daydreaming about their career, about their revocation of the signs, about their revocation of the laws, about their revoking the sentimental observation. These concepts are very bleak, controverted, and confronted and debarred from the Republicans, but the Republicans are and were not willing to observe anything beside of their central limits of the central area of not observing the confined question of the human interpretation clauses as well. So stay blessed, take care, advocate Bureski.